Hello everyone, this is Victor Dantas here from the Zero to Hero Academy. Over the years, we have helped multiple professionals either get into the Power Platform market or some of the seasoned professionals within the industry up their game within the low-code technologies. And we are here to announce that we have a special program coming up between March 19th and May 30th. This is the Power Pages and AI Zero to Hero Mentorship Program. Join us, click on the link, access the lessons. You know how we do it. Live lessons on Teams, and then the recorder goes up to YouTube and you can follow if you are in different time zones, but we prefer it to join it live. Connect, ask questions. So go ahead, invite your colleagues, your dad, your mom, your grandpa. Let's everybody join the fun. All right, we'll see you there. Take care.
Is a lot more to come, and it is my pleasure and delight to bring a hero in the community. Ulrikke, you've been doing a lot of great work. I always say this, and people, I don't know if they think I'm joking or lying or what it is, but it's almost like every week one of the heroes, they are really helping me in my projects. Last week was Rick. The week before was Oliver. By the way, I was looking at your local signing page customization articles this past week. So these guys
Oh,
are
that's
great.
fun.
Yeah, my only strength here is to know them all. They are very
That's
good
not true.
professionals, great friends, and I do really appreciate everything that you bring to the community, Rick, and everybody else who's on the call here as well. Lesson 11, the floor is yours. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much, Victor. And you're way too humble. It's not true at all. And what you're doing now, it's with your company and the whole with Power Pages and the new template that you had coming out or build on top. It looks amazing. So you're way too humble, and the work that you do is it lifts us all up. So and actually, coming onto this call, I had a friend post me the link to the last time I was on your Zero to Hero, and
Oh
that's
wow,
2 years ago, and
wow.
it was awful to watch.
Oh no.
Oh yeah, that was awful. And I was saying, I'm not an MVP because I have small kids and I'm not going to be an MVP. And I think a few months later, right, Nick, I became an MVP. So there you go.
Yeah,
Sometimes you just can't help yourself. Yeah, no,
yeah.
it was a blast from the past that I could be without for sure. Uh, Nick's giving me all kinds of love on the side here. That's very good. Um, all right, I will get started. I'll try to share no, I can't share my screen. Can you make me a presenter? Or maybe I need to go back in again. Maybe
You
I
are a
join.
presenter now. Yeah.
Oh, there you go. And also, I think it's a bit unfair to have me this late in the game because now everyone's talked about all the good stuff. So next time, I need to make sure that I'm bright and early to get to tell all you good people, all the crazy new stuff that I can be first.
Hey,
Because I
That's
Victor.
have one.
that's why I always go first. Don't ever go
I
after,
know. Oh,
Ulrich or Nikita or Nick. Don't ever go after those guys or any other guys who is on this list. I go first every time for that reason.
I get you. So next time I'll battle you for it because and then I watched your intro and I went, okay, so you're showing the theming and all the new Copilot capabilities, and then Franco is showing the bootstrap things and how you use Copilot for coding. So then I thought, you know what? I'm just gonna take it all the way down to the basics. So today, people, I'm gonna disappoint you so bad. It's gonna be so little AI and Copilot because even though this is awesome and we need to use it every day, you still need to learn and know how to do your job properly as well without help of the Copilot. And I'm going to show you the basics today. So if you've been to my Signing Power Pages session before, then this might be a recap. But you know what they say about good content or important things in life? You can't really hear them too many times. So this will be then a recap for you. Let's see if I can get my presentation running. There you go. And you chose the wrong picture for me, Victor. Did you know? Because I'm Black Widow.
Oh yeah,
Do
that's
you?
right. That's right. I'll
Yeah,
remember
I
it
had
next time.
proof. This
Oh
is me from
wow.
ACDC. I had Marius Beresen color my hair, and I had a permanent done at my hairdresser's before I went, because I'm Black Widow. So there you go. And also, I'm Ulrikke Akerbaek, and this is Color Cloud slide that I thought I had hidden, but I didn't. So this is the one I'm going to go with. My name is Ulrikke Akerbaek. I'm a Power Platform practice lead at a consultant company called Itera in Norway. And what that means is that I'm responsible for over 700 of my colleagues' technology involvement around Power Platform in general. So I run events, I make sure that they get all the news and updates, that they see the latest features coming out. I'm, of course, always, as always, the admin of our platform, the one that we have in our environment. I do have to fiddle around with COE and all the dashboards and now we have all those nice little dashboards to show us different scores on security and different things. So I have to keep an eye on that. And pretty much an all-rounder. And also I keep everyone else up to date on Power Platform news and updates, together with the one and only Nick Dolman. He's here somewhere in the call. Every 2 weeks, we publish a podcast episode where we run through all the new news and updates for Power Platform in about 30 minutes. So if you need an easy way to ramp up on that while you're running or commuting or something like that, then check that podcast out. And I also adopted Nick's Canadian out. So if you think that's weird that a Norwegian has a Canadian out, then that's why. Thank you, Nick. Yeah. Learned so many things from you. And also, if you need to get in touch with me for any reason on Power Pages or Power Platform related topics, please reach out to me on any of the social platforms. I think I'm the only one that's called Ulrikke and do Power Platform and Power Pages things, so you will be able to find me. Today's session is going to be a bit about Copilot and new styling capabilities, but this is a bit old. This is a session that I did in Vegas together with Nitish, which is who is a developer in the Power Pages design team. We'll also look into branding and the design studio, and then we'll look more into advanced styling. So if you're not familiar with styling and the basics of that in Power Pages, then this is the right place for you to be. And feel free to raise your hand and ask a question. I see that there's something in the chat that I haven't seen. Starts with, I will disappoint you, and end with AI does not compute. Yeah, hey Nikita. Nice. We'll see. We'll see. So I'd like to share something with you that I've been working on for 15 years. And this is my site content creation process. When I start a new Power Pages project, this is the process that I go through every single time. And I started my career as a SharePoint developer back in the day doing intranet branding. So this is what I started developing this even back then. Because intranets and websites and portals and apps, they usually all start out the same way, with a blank canvas and a base, a framework, a design framework, if you will. And then we fill in the different details as we go. So this is what my process looks like. When I start a new site, I always start with the logo and the favicon. Then I move on to fonts, because I'm a big font nerd, and I feel like fonts really put the identity in the branding or the styling of your site. Fonts are so important. Then I look into the colors, which are also very much a part of the identity, very much also tied to the logo. And usually there are brand guides for you to follow at your customers or the company that you work with. But sometimes we have to create these ourselves. And that's when AI is very handy. Because even though I've worked with design and implementing user interfaces and designs on websites my whole career, I'm not very visually powerful. I'm not a very visual person. I'm not create great designs. I'm not a good designer that way. I can implement anything under the sun with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, but I could not win a design competition if my life depended on it. So that's where we can use AI tools, for instance. Once we have that base in place, we move to the header and the footer. We look at the main navigation, maybe the top bar when you have the search and your logins. And then the page layout. We look at what are the different kinds of pages that we need to be able to show the content and get the message across that we want to communicate here. Maybe we have some articles that look one way. Maybe we have a products page that look like another page. Maybe we have an event page that has another look and setup, and we kind of identify those and the patterns that they follow and make page layouts for them. Then we fill in the information, that's the pages. And then we fill in the content blocks, the component. Maybe you have to create a custom component for one of your pages. And it kind of gets just more and more granular from there. So I'm curious to see, can you guys raise your hands and stuff? Are you able to do that? Has anyone worked in a perfect, there you go. It lights up. I'm so happy. I got you up in the other screen on my corner here. All right, so any of you guys ever worked in the kind of the similar pattern or with a similar process? Does this sound familiar to any one of you, or is this very new? Yeah, Aaron, Nick. Nick's been forced to do this a couple of times already with me on projects. So he's very familiar with this. Ha ha ha, laughing, very funny. Okay, but a lot of you, this is new. So who here knows what a favicon is? And you don't have to tell me. It's enough to raise your hand. Oh, this is awesome. Okay, 2 people. Victor. Oh, Miranda, Aaron, Louise, I see you. That's very good. We'll dive more into that later. Is there any other font nerds in the house? Is it only me? Ah, 1 more, 2 more. Victor. Nikita. Nikita, really? Aaron. Oh, with a love heart. Oh, that's so good. Oh, I like it very much. Very good. Right. Let's dive in. Surprised to Famicom that early in the process, though, says Aaron. And yes, I know. You know what? It's a good point. It's very early, but also it's one of those few things that will wow the customer. Because when the customer sees that favicon, he feels like you care about the website. It's kind of the equivalent to when you make a model-driven app and you, instead of just using the default icon thing that you get when you create your site, you actually take the time to choose the right icon or put up custom icons for in the navigation and in the different places in the model-driven app. Kind of shows that same nurturing or same care. It's in the details, right? And so it costs us so little and it shows good care and your customer will love it. Miss Miranda, I know. But the new Microsoft font is really, really, really cool though. So yeah. Before we get even to a blank canvas, we have to choose our template. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because this will have a huge impact on the end result you have. The different starter templates and the other templates, if depending on which template you use, the theming engine will apply colors differently. So primary color, secondary color will be different for the different templates. They're not built on the same theming structure. So it's one of those know your beast kinds of things. Usually I will start with a blank canvas. I used to work only with the partner portal because that was the beast that I knew. So I was the fastest in that template, and that's as easy as it is. it comes to branding. And that was kind of the path that I chose. So for me, I think choose a template that you're comfortable with and learn that well. Will save you time in terms of branding. But also try to look into the more of them. The more templates you look into and kind of investigate and fiddle around with, the more you'll learn in terms of branding and web development if you're new to this. And that kind of goes for everything that you want to learn, right? So if you want to learn about Canvas apps, create all the template Canvas apps that you can get your hands on in your environment and break them. That's the best way to learn if you're a kinetic learner. Just pick it apart, because then you'll learn so much. And that goes for branding with Power Pages as well. I said I wasn't going to talk too much about copilots, and the reason is very simple. I don't use it a lot because today it doesn't do what I want it to do. It doesn't do it well, and it makes a mess. And that's the truth. But it will only get better if we use it. And that's why I always have a sandbox where I try to do what I want it to do, to see and give feedback. And we talk to Microsoft often, and we know that they look into the telemetry. So if Copilot doesn't help you, give it a thumbs down. And if it actually helps you, give it a thumbs up, because they look at that telemetry. So that's really something to look into. So what can Copilot do in terms of branding and styling? It can create your website for you, and it can apply the theming that you want on top. What I find is that it's not very good at it yet. There seems to be a limit of how creative it can be. And even if I ask it to go and make me a Coca-Cola site, it really doesn't grasp the whole theming the way that I would want it to. But it's a good way to start. So that's for sure. So it kind of gives you a head start. But if I want to go into a customer site and use their existing website as a template, then it kind of gets the identifying colors wrong. And until it gets that right, we really can't use it for that. So I'm looking forward to it being better. And I try it every so often to make sure that I keep on top of it. But still, I find that I have to go in and make a lot of changes afterwards. It will also help us create pages with layout and content, depending on what kind of site you want, and that is great. But also there's a limitation to how many different kinds of layouts it creates. And I see when I try this a lot, the same things, the same layouts and the same content kind of appear very often. So that tells me that the box that it has to draw from isn't very big. But I'm keen to see that being evolved for sure. What is very cool in my book is the way you can have a page and then add a form to that page and make that form look great. You can make it look slick and modern. You can make it look corporate and very tight. And that does a very good job at that. But also remember that that is in the context of that page specifically. You cannot expect to add another page with another form and that styling will be applied automatically. That you will have to make sure that then you have to make sure that you grab that CSS and make that more broad and global so that it applies to all forms. So you actually have to know, and I guess you've heard this before when it comes to AI and Copilot, you have to know what you're doing in order to be able to make AI work for you in a good way. Because you need to be able to check its work and correct it if it gets it wrong still. So it's up to us as professionals to use it and to guide it and to tell it when it's wrong and to applaud it because we want to be polite to AI. That's a very good idea when it does things right. And so that the generation that comes after us will be able to use it without having the knowledge to check its work. So that's what I'll say about that topic for now. This is Nitish. He is lead designer efforts for Copilot and Design Studio in Power Pages. So also, because I know Nitish, if you have any feedback that you want to give to the team, they are very keen on hearing your feedback. So we'll just swiftly go through the demo that he showed in Vegas, and this will be a recap of what Victor showed you. The way that you can add a page, ask it to add a page, and it will add it and create the content for you. And this is where it's helpful to me. It creates images and text, so I don't have to go grab stock photo images or the loremipsum.com. Raise a hand, all that's used loremipsum.com before to put dummy text, right? Miranda, Jose, yes. So, it is also supposed to be able to give you a color theme. I feel in my book that this is not really working that well. It does create a color theme and you are able to apply it to your page, and it's very fun as a demo thing. But in my book, this is not accurate enough yet. You can also have it suggest content for you, rewrite it, and make it shorter, longer, and things like that. But that's also mostly for typewriters and testers in my book at this point. But also very, very good if you're not confident in writing text. This is exciting to me. The introduction of Google fonts. They expanded the font library. So before you were able to choose, I think it was 10 different fonts you could choose from. Now it's up to 30, and those are the 30 most used fonts in Google Fonts Library. Google Fonts Library is a free open source place where you can connect your site to a font, and it will be added to it is added to all the portals to begin with. So it's very easy. And you can also choose to use another font from Google Fonts if you want, but then you have to implement it yourself, and I'll show you how to do that later. Always starts prompts with Copilot, can you please, Victor says. And also, I find if you tell it that it's an expert, then it really wants to show you how great it is. So that's a hot tip for me. And I also heard from someone else that if you tell it that it's May, it will outperform, because May is a very busy time, it's springtime, so it feels like it's very important to help you, and it will perform better for you than the next person that did not tell it that it was May. Also, imagery. This is also something that I use, I must admit. The fact that you can go in and add stock images to your site, and it's free, and you don't have to check the licenses, the creative licenses for it. That's very good. And it's been there a while. The icons and illustrations I have not used a lot, but some, and it's also very nice. Styling options. To me, this is, you know, the salesperson that discovered that you can do transitions in PowerPoint. This is the equivalent to in my book. Rounded corners, shadows, overlays, all very fancy styling elements. But usually this is something you want to be consistent across your site. If you want rounded corners on your pictures, you will have to make sure that you have a CSS file that states that all images have rounded corners and that it's 20 pixels, for instance, or 10. To do that for all the images across your site in this way does not make sense to me. I'll be brutally honest with you. I think sometimes Microsoft kind of invest in the not necessarily the best areas, the areas that where we actually need the most investments, and this is one of those for me. It's good as a play around and fiddle in the front end kind of thing, but it doesn't make sense for any big Power Pages project to work with design and styling this way. But it's fancy and cool, and it looks great in the demo, so that's why they're added it probably. You can now add styling to both sections and the different layout sections, images, also not buttons yet, I think. It says here video design, image design, and there's a lot of other styling elements coming here because they're kind of reusing the same template for the different products. The different elements. So that's very good. Drag and drop, that is something that we wanted and needed, and it was amazing to see that it finally arrived in October. And this is probably my favorite when it comes to styling, the list design styler. This is very cool, and I love to see this pop up in my Power Pages sites. So any questions so far in terms of what I've shown you? We do have 1 hour, right, Victor? Aaron says, perhaps an apply to all button coming from the styling options. Yes, yes, yes. Or add to global would be amazing, right? I hope someone in the meeting is taking notes. Victor says, yes, 1 hour. Perfect. Right. So back to the process. So in the beginning, we want to add the identity markers. That's the first thing that we're looking for when you establish that graphical framework, if you will, for our Power Pages site. And on the image you see here, this is a portal that we use internally at Itera. Every fall we go out, and probably you have some of the similar things in your companies. We all go off to a resort somewhere. We have meetings and workshops and what we call lightning talks to help each other with gaining experience and tell each other about different case studies that we've been doing and customer works and all of that. And then we party and have fun. So this site is actually only used once a year, and it's for that event. So this is where we have all the information about the hotel and how to travel. You can submit your lightning talk when upfront, and we can vote for the ones that we want. And we can also then, once we get to the event, we can use this to sign up for the different lightning talks. You'll also see who you share rooms with, and you can update your personal information and so on and so forth. So the first thing that I did when I had this site was that I opened up a blank site. I added a new blank template site. And the first thing I did was I clicked on the header, and it allows me now finally to add the Atera logo in the header as a picture. I can upload it directly from here. And I think that came around in October sometime, and that's very, very good. Now, what I also want to see here is being able to add that favicon as well. That would be awesome, because if you want to do that, this favicon right here, then you still have to go back into the portals management app, the model-driven app that comes with Power Pages, because you cannot add an ICO, an icon file, a favicon file in the media library from the Design Studio. So you actually have to go in here, let me see, into the Power Pages Management model-driven app and into Web Files folder and create a new Web Files file and upload that favicon as a file. And that is exactly the same that you have to do if you want to use your custom fonts. So in Itera, as you can see here from this picture, we have very cool fonts. So this, I don't know if you can see my marker, but this Lean Hobby, this font is very special. And that's something that our design bureau created only for us. And so to be able to use that, I have to add the logo, the font file to my web files, and then reference that in a CSS later. So that's also how you add the fonts. Now going back into Design Studio, choosing styling, I set up my color palette. I choose the different brand colors that we have for Atera. I see in real time how they apply to the website. This is pretty much familiar to you, I guess. We've all been in there and fiddled around with it. And this is how, when I talked earlier about the different templates, and I said colors will apply differently across different templates, this is what I mean. So depending on the template you've created your site with, the primary, secondary, and tertiary colors will apply a bit differently across your site. And so that's when it's a good idea to know your template well. This is also where you can manage your CSS files. So once you have created your color palette and you've chosen your different fonts, you hit save, and then you can click the 3 small dots and you can choose Manage CSS. This allows you to upload a CSS file I call mine etero.css, and once it's uploaded, it could be empty if you wanted to. You can make it with Notepad++, for instance, which is my favorite script programming tool, if you can call it that. And once it is uploaded, then you can edit it through the Visual Studio in the browser editor. And I must say, now Nick has heard me say this so many times, when I saw that Microsoft was investing in making Visual Studio Code available in the browser, I thought, oh my Lord, who will use a script editor in the browser when we already have Visual Studio Code as a desktop tool? And then I had to eat my words, because ever since they launched that, I haven't opened Visual Studio. I haven't downloaded a portal since that became available. I use it every single day, and that's the only place I'll go. I've stopped downloading portals now, just because I can edit all the code in a browser. So yeah, sometimes you have to eat your words and go back on something. And this is one of those occasions for me. So here from here, you can choose edit code, and you can then see this CSS file. You can see the favicon, you can see the font files, and then you can also go and dive into all the other web files and web templates and page content you have on your page. So it's not just that page that you opened or that file that you opened, but you can also see all the other code components and code that you have on your Power Pages site from here. And also this, let me just check. Yeah. So this is kind of the styling that I applied to make that header so big and wide. There are some styling necessary, because often you have the header for most of the Power Pages templates are designed around a header that is very wide and narrow and thin, but ours isn't. Ours is a bit different, and I also wanted it to scale so that when I view it on a mobile phone, it kind of looks different. And I thought maybe I'll just bring this up for you so that you could see what it is that I'm talking about. So let's see if I have this here. And also, because I'm a developer, I hack this site always. So if there's something here that's a bit out of whack, never mind. For instance, agenda 1. Someone made 2 agenda pages, and that's what you go. There you go. So I'm just gonna hit F12, and you can watch the header up here. And then I hit this to show you what it looks like on a mobile phone. So I want this header to kind of expand, and I want the header to be a bit smaller. I want the menu to collapse and expand like this, and also for it to be responsive this way, so that when you view it on the mobile phone, it kind of still looks good. And if you want to be able to do that, you still have to know your way around CSS. The Studio Designer will help you as much as it can, but it's still limited in terms of what you can do for that kind of thing. So it is important to know CSS if you want to work with a website, and I feel that's fair. If you want to build websites, you need to know a bit about web development. If you want to make apps, you need to know a bit about app development. And that just, I don't think we'll ever be able to come around to a place where that doesn't apply. So this is why the styling here in the CSS, I have a logo wrapper, and then I have a logo small, logo stacked, and logo large. There are actually 3 different pictures that I show and hide depending on the width of the page. So that is one little neat hack that I learned way back when that I still use in my projects. That's just a header tip from me to you. And there you go. I actually have the images to show what it looks like on the mobile and also otherwise. And don't you just love that red panda? Oh, I feel like that red panda some days. And this slide is about content. So reusable content components has been on my wish list for forever for Power Pages. And this year we got it. We can now use web templates as components, meaning I can create a web template that holds one image to the left, a header, some content, a little text here, and then a button. And then I can reuse that code across my whole Power Pages site, not doing anything else, but just sending it the URL to the picture, the text that it should display in the header, the body text, and then also the link and the title of the button. And then these cards, if you want, will look exactly the same in across my whole site. And the customer, as it will one day come into my office and say, Ulrikke, now I want all of those images to have rounded corners. And then I can simply go into the web template, into that source code component, and I can add rounded corners to this image, and it will be applied across all the different cards. Now that's the power of reusable components. And that's why I also feel like when you use the Copilot to add styling to a form that you cannot reuse easily, then that's kind of not showing the new users the best way of working as a web developer. So I want the Copilot to come to that place where it teaches us how to be better web developers, to use common web development patterns and be smart about our styling and branding. So this is also one hot tip for me. If you come across a component that you create for your Power Pages site and you think, I wonder if we could reuse this somewhere, then make that component into a web template, add that manifest file and reuse it. And that kind of brings us across very nicely to the pro code part of Power Pages development. Because, and this is 2 years ago, 1.5 years ago, we finally able to use the Portal CLI to download our Power Pages, the whole thing, to our local machine, and we could upload it to repo. We could have the whole GitHub code. I'm losing my word. It's late night here. The full code source control. That's the word that I was looking for. And also that enabled us to use something called SCSS, which is a framework around CSS that allows you to write formulas and use variables and all kinds of more developy ways of working with CSS. And so that's what I did for a lot of the big projects that we do with complex designs. We use SCSS. So this is a portal that I downloaded. This is still the Atera site. I downloaded it to my local machine. I added a folder for SCSS, and then I can break my CSS up in different smaller files so that it's easier for the next person or the other people on my team to find the styling that they're looking for. Because you've all looked into those big CSS files, right? Hands up, who's ever had to scroll down a 1,000,000 pages long CSS file? Yes, Nick, Victor, and not a lot of others. Lucky you. But this is what it could look like in a big project. You would have one humongous CSS file that one developer created his way or her way. And then you go in there and you can't find what you're looking for because you're looking at the header. The styling for the header should be fairly high up, but that designer that created it, he put it way down to the bottom. And so this way of structuring the files like this makes more sense in terms of finding what you're looking for in terms of styling. It all compiles down to one CSS file in the end, though, that you upload to your Power Pages site, and suddenly you can have a site that looks something like this. That doesn't look like a Power Pages site at all. And that's kind of the thing that I've heard across, throughout my careers, especially working with SharePoint intranets on-prem back in the day. how can you make my SharePoint intranet not look like a SharePoint intranet? We don't usually do branding that heavy anymore, but I still hear that for Power Pages. Wow, was this made with Power Pages? It looks so different. And anything, and I mean this, anything that you can make in a WordPress site in terms of design and this kind of branding, you can make with Power Pages. You just need to know what you're doing. Yeah, so this is the pro code part of it. This is Visual Studio Code in the browser, which is, like I told you earlier, one of my favorite things these days. You can add your JavaScript directly into the code. I'm not going to go too deep into this because I know that Franco and Victor, they showed a bit of this already. The CLI is amazing. And this kind of brings us to the conclusion of this presentation today, because I have left a little time for questions for you. But I also wanted to share with you that I made a blog post that goes with this presentation. So if you find that it was a bit fast, it was a bit quick and dirty, she was all over the place, well then, lucky for you, you can go in and read my blog post, and you can get through this content in your own pace. And I also have a low-code Power Pages ALM blog post that is relevant, because we all want to make sure that we are doing it right when it comes to ALM. And also a lot of other resources in terms of how to do branding with Power Pages in how I would do it. So that's a privilege you get when you write blogs. You can just write whatever you want, the way you want it to be done, and share it with the world. And so that's what I've done. Also, in the bottom corner, you see my blog post about how to add favicons to Power Pages. Now, I will give you one hot tip about favicons. Back when I was starting out as a web developer, that's too many years ago to mention, we could just simply upload a favicon to the base, the root of your website. It will be added to as the icon in the browser, and your customer would be happy. These days, it's a totally different ballgame, though. You need to make sure that you have images that work as icons on mobile phones. So when someone visits your Power Pages site and then they say add to home screen, you want to make sure that that icon is not 16 by 16 pixels. You want to make sure that that looks good. And that is also favicons these days. So if you look into that properly, like I should have done and have postponed for a year, then to make sure that you read up on how to do that. And maybe you can get a Copilot friend to help you, because I've heard that it does that actually very well. So that's actually all that I had today. No, there you go. There's one more slide, because these are the 4 things that I use the most when I go into branding Power Pages or any website, really. I always have three schools open. It's a Norwegian site where you can search and look up anything under the sun in terms of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript and more. I use it as a rule book. And CSS tricks. If you want to learn about Flex, for instance, or CSS grids or other types of things, that's my favorite resource. And also, of course, Bootstrap 5 and the components that you can get to there. Bootstrap 5 and Bootstrap 3.5 that we used to have are different. We get a lot of new components, but they also are built very different from scratch up. So make sure that you update yourself on the Bootstrap content. And also, if you want to look more into the SCSS kinds of things, then SAS is a good way to go. And this presentation session was more about showing you different kind of breadcrumbs and small strings that you can pull, so that you know that there are resources out there and there are things to consider when you go ahead and you style your Power Pages site. So thank you for having me. It seems like we have 15 minutes left for questions, and I'm happy to also read through the chat to see if I missed any big questions.
All right.
Mm.
I don't see anything here on the other channels. I was broadcasting the session to the other channels as well. I didn't see any comments, but I really like what you showed, Ulrich, in terms of diving or showcasing places that people, specific places where people can apply customizations for look and feel. So I think it was really good. Aaron, we have Aaron with his hands up or his hand up. So go ahead and ask away.
Hey, sorry, I asked it in the chat, but just curious, since I think you as a speaker would probably have quite a bit of experience in this, mocking up multilingual sites, so using Copilot or not or whatever, but just how Power Portal pages, whatever, how it deals with localization, and certainly just as you are rolling stuff out with kind of mock templates. I work for the federal government, so lots of stuff related to having to do content in French and English. And yeah, the other languages usually get pretty short shrift relative to English. So yeah, we're curious on your experience of whether Copilot has made it easy or whether localization in general is easy on Power Portal.
It's such a good question. And I talked to a customer on Monday on this exact thing because unfortunately, I can't really see a lot of improvements in terms of multilingual capabilities with Copilot for Power Pages. I wish there was an automatic Copilot that would translate everything for you. And maybe one of you guys here knows this better than me as well. If this is something that we can expect to see in the future as well, but I haven't seen any sign of that, unfortunately. So what I do actually, I add, this might sound crazy, but we add 30% on top of our original estimates if our customer wants another language. And that is purely because these days, content snippets are not part of the design studio. So you have to fill a lot around in the original Power Pages management app. You have to make sure that you always account for those 2 or 3 or more languages when you develop your custom code.
Mm-hmm.
And you always have to make that extra effort to make sure that you don't add any labels or help text or anything in any web template. And that kind of breaks a lot of the ways that we work with Power Pages. Suddenly we can't have text or images in the web templates because those are not language. They don't swap with your language. Only page content and content snippets will do that for you.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a very good question. It's a very timely question. And also just being able to work with multilingual capabilities through the designer that has been one of our top asks for a while. So I really hope that we see an improvement in that, in the investment coming forward. But I can't see that I've seen any sign of it, unfortunately.
Well, thanks for the perspective. I guess so. Can you just clarify? Because like I'm far more experienced with the idea of kind of say model-driven apps and the ability to export your labels, get it easily translate, re-import, and it's really beautiful and seamless. So
Yep.
I guess what you're saying is like to a degree that's possible, but it's only kind of like 50% kind of coverage.
Yeah, very, very well spotted. So we use the same mechanism. So we will export that Excel file and we will translate it. And of course, for that we use AI, but you also always have to check it, don't you? And often you use it and you work with industry specific customers. It's not always that Google Translate or any AI service will get all of those words right. Especially I find from Norwegian to English, for instance, there's a lot of very creative translations. So you really
I
have to
know.
really have to look at that and not take that for granted as something that's viable. And so that takes an additional time. And you're right, to an extent, if you have a form, for instance, that form name, or you have different views and you have different names for those views, and you use the out-of-the-box form and list components, those names will translate out into your portal. But the second you go into the portal the form, the basic form, it's not called that anymore, the form in Power Pages, and you add your custom label, then you're in trouble, because then you have to add
Mm.
that label for all the different languages, and then you add the button label. Oh no, then you have to add that to all the no, and then on and on it goes.
Yeah.
So it is worth looking at, and I'm not 30% is not a number that I've taken out of thin air. It is actually proven over a number of projects, especially Norwegian English. I add 30% and it usually comes in right.
Yeah.
But very good
it would
question, Aaron, and I'll take it back to the team. Another one that asks about multilingual capabilities in Power Pages. Whoop whoop! There's another.
Yeah.
There you go. Yes.
And if
Well, it's on
any-
such a global scale, right? Like Microsoft has arguably done a ton of great things, making localization. They know they have so many enterprise customers around the world, and it's just another one of those things that you can't, when you look at adoption and that sort of thing, like it's like who forgot about this kind of thing.
Yeah.
I know, and actually, I want to. Sorry, Victor. I just have to make that point, because Power Pages originated in Canada. And I believe that is why the multilingual capabilities in Power Pages has always been very, very good. It was surprisingly good, actually. It was one of the things that actually worked when we started working in Power Pages 8 years ago. And so we've seen so little investment in that area as Redmond took over. Let's put it like that. So we just, as a multilingual community, we need to still push and explain to these people how important that is, and that the majority of the world will need this kind of functionality, because it's very important. And so thank you, Aaron. I will pass it on to the team because it's very important.
I was gonna say 30% price tag or markup for maybe English add-on or Norwegian, potentially French and Spanish. But then if you deal with right to left languages like Arabic or Hebrew, you're looking at 100% markup probably, because there is no support today. So you have to work with a lot of CSS to cover for that. So fun stuff. All right.
I feel like that's
There's
a whole
another
other amazing topic on responsiveness with right to left languages.
Oh yeah, I know. Isn't it fun? Yeah, but unfortunately, that's the kind of thing that actually Copilot and AI will be able to help us with, and that is also something that has been solved before. So when I look at what you can use Copilot and AI for, I always look for the things that's solved already, and those kind of things. We do have proven web patterns to handle that, because that's been handled before us, and it's been handled by the huge corporations and enterprises. So for us to make that wheel one more time, kind of look to the neighbor and see what they did is my best advice in terms of that. I see there's a question from Tino. It is within my first 10 questions in a Power Pages project. Are you planning to support more than one language? And if so, does the content between languages differ? And what gives a good indication of extra efforts for localization? That gives a good example. Yeah. Yeah, it's very good, Tino. Thank you so much for adding that. It is one of the it used to be one of the biggest selling points for Power Pages, in my opinion. I've always had that in the first 2 slides, that the multilingual capabilities are great, and we can support almost anything. But that is true through the old management app and the old experience. Yep, Aaron, go ahead.
If nobody else has questions, I'll pick your brain.
Yeah.
I know you've got NDAs and stuff from MVP time in Redmond, but I'm just curious from a platform perspective, how have you felt in terms of where investment is going for Power Portal? In Canada here, I don't know, maybe 7 years ago, I feel like we were like I was at an organization with one of the first like marketing and events website portal rollouts, and it was a disaster in terms of just like such a different technology stack that they were using compared to normal, and so a lot has grown and evolved, and Copilot's great and all that. Is this a place that you think is going to see considerable investment, or has a leader in charge of the product that you're hearing great things from? Just kind of curious how it's going to evolve, because I feel like it kind of goes in fits and spurts. They do a bunch, and then they ignore it for a bit, and then maybe come back to it. So I'm just kind of curious of the roadmap.
Yeah, we can't share any details about the roadmap, of course, as you know, and as you said. And I do agree with you. It's kind of in short spurts, and we saw so much investment in the pro code side of Power Pages. And I would argue, and I said this on the last episode of the Extra Toolbox as well, spoke to Scott Giroux about this, how Power Pages is probably the most pro code friendly tool in the box. And and that is also due to the investment that we've seen the last couple of years. I've also was very curious to see how much content we would get around Power Pages at MVP Summit. And we had, Nick and I went and talked to the group, and we got to see the roadmap. And I can assure you that there will be significant investment in Power Pages going forward. I'm not going to move away from this space anytime soon, because there are so much good stuff coming, and they're investing in the right areas as well. That was very good to see. And so I'm very, very enthusiastic about what's coming. And I will leave it at that before I say something that I shouldn't.
Wait,
Nick,
I
do
was
you have
gonna
anything
say
to add? Because Nick is very good at this.
no. I was gonna say maybe Nikita should speak on that so that we don't risk
Yeah,
breaching the NDA. So I don't know if he's still here, but yeah, we can
it
open
seems like
space
he's
here.
on a hold, so we'll see. Maybe he's dodging the questions, because then he's usually
Exactly, he stepped out.
licensing questions, and he doesn't want us to answer licensing questions.
But Nick, feel free as well if you want to chime in. Feel free to unmute and maybe give your 2 cents. Of course, I mean the perception I
Stay
had
tuned.
from the
He says
summit
in the
was
chat.
yeah from the summit was e- ev- pretty much what everybody's seeing from videos and marketing from Microsoft. Everything is Copilot, Copilot, Copilot. Um, but yeah, I concur with you, Ulrich. I think there's still a lot of opportunity within Power Pages and the whole Power Platform in the context of low code, no code, app building, automation building, governance, and all that. So I wouldn't take the push for Copilot as a signal that we're gonna lose our jobs, in a day or two. There is still a lot of opportunity there.
Yeah, I just want to talk a little bit about the perception of the bursts. Like all of a sudden something comes and then it's quiet and things like that. And this is just from my perspective, working so closely with the team, is sometimes I have seen it from the backside that there's been a lot of things at play, a lot of things being developed, yet they're just not quite ready to be released. Or sometimes something will come along, like a co-pilot, which will take priority, and then something else might mean that it's still coming, but it just might not be released. And we see that in the release planner all the time. That's public information. We see things in the release plan, and again, it clearly states in the release plan that these may or may not come. And then sure enough, the 6 months go by and there's a specific feature or something that hasn't quite surfaced yet. I think the one that I can think of recently that we've all were waiting forever was the ability to convert standard data model to enhanced data model. Um, this was a tool we knew it was coming since they announced the enhanced data model, because we knew it was quite obvious there's no way Microsoft is going to leave all these existing Power Pages sites on standard model hanging. But it was like, when's it coming? Where is it?
Yep.
And you got to realize that even now it's in preview, but there's probably a lot of work. So the thing is, it's not like the Power Pages team is part-time. I can guarantee you they are not. They are working. And yeah, there is a roadmap, there is stuff coming, and we see that every week. Like last week, Delete threw this out of nowhere, this whole thing about generating FAQ pages within Power Pages. I didn't see that coming at all. And then here we get, so there
Yeah.
is new stuff showing up all the time. And I know Tino has a, plug for Tino. He's doing a webcast or something later this week on that FAQ thing. So yeah, yeah, it might seem from our perspective, now I'm on the outside, it might seem like bursts, but seriously, that machine is humming. They are building stuff, and then I can't like. I think for Ulrikke and I for the Power Platform Boost podcast, we got material that's going to be, as much as we cover the whole Power Platform, just even on Power Pages stuff every 2 weeks. And Tino, your newsletter is going to be packed full of stuff for years to come, I'm sure. So